p.m. Fixins Nets, first and third Monday, 7 p.m. W5FC. W5FC.
evening, everyone. This is Virginia in D5F. I'm going to be your net control for Skynet in a few minutes. We will start the net right at 9 o'clock, so if anyone needs to use the repeater before we begin Skynet, please do so now. This is D5F.
IMCOMNet, second Monday at 7 p.m., W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Good evening, everyone. This is ND5F. My name is Virginia, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. The stations with priority for emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency traffic or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to please ID at the end of your transmission. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio and video links are available online. Go to W5FC.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check in to the net electronically by going to the club website, W5FC.org. At the top of the Skynet announcement, look for tonight's Skynet electronic check-in link. We will acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to check in the old-fashioned way, via RF voice or Echolink, we will continue to do that as well. All amateur radio operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. First, we'll have general announcements. Next, we'll have Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. Next, National Space Society events. Next, discussion topic of the evening, selected by me, the net control. Next, we'll have What's Up with Chaz. Space exploration and space history with Gus. Constellation of the week with Chaz. Space launches of the week with Tom, and the visible satellite passages over the next couple days, also with Tom. If there's time at the end, we will have astronomical Q&A and a 73 round, but usually we fill up the full 90 minutes. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited and encouraged to check in. We currently have the following people checked in via our electronic check-in. KE5ICX, Tom from Corpus Christi, Texas. NV5S, that's me, Virginia. I'm on the planet Gin and Tonic. I will not explain further. Next we have KF5PDS, Billy in Sherman. AA5AH, Roberts in Richardson. AG9SG, Antonio in Dallas. KF5JHH, Chaz in Mesquite. N5BD, Bill in Irving. And NT5PM, Tony in Bird City. Now let's start with our voice check-ins, starting with any short time check-ins. Do we have any short time check-ins for Skynet? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
Kilo, Alpha 6, Echo, Tango, Sierra, Phil, Mesquite, KA6ETS.
Okay, for short time check-ins, I've got KA6ETS still in Mesquite. Thank you for checking in. Is there anything you'd like to bring to the net before you have to leave?
That's a negative, KA6ETS.
Okay, well, we thank you so much for being here. And next we'd like to go for general check-ins. This is general RF check-ins. If you are general check-in for Skynet, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, Joey 5, PLT, Bill, Garlic. Tried to check in online, but I guess I didn't make it, so just checking in on the air.
This is Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob and Farmers Branch.
This is 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch. 4, Mike, Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
All right, that's a pretty good start. We have added W5CLT, Bill, and Garland. It's good to hear you on here tonight. Sorry the electronic thing wasn't working for you. Next we have KG5UFR, Jacob in Farmers Branch. Then we had a call in the end, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John in Coppell. John, could you please give me your prefix? There was a weird little pile up there on you.
That's Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, far, far northwest Dallas. K5JW, John in Coppell.
Okay, thank you, John. I appreciate the fill there. Next we have W5GU at Gus in Dallas, far, far northeast, easterly east Dallas, I think. KF5ZBL, Bill in Farmers Branch. WB4MFI, Ted in Dallas, low power as always. Anyone else for general RF check-ins for Skynet? Call sign, name, and location, please.
Kilo Charlie 5, Mike, Papa Oscar, Jamie, North Dallas.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton. Alpha India 5, Oscar Lima, Dan, Southwest Fort Worth.
Okay, we added quite a few there. We added KC5MPO, Jamie in North Dallas, KG5WIL, James in North Carrollton, and AI5OL, Dan in Southwest Fort Worth. You're getting in even further than me. I'm a man East Fort Worth. All right, next we have Echolink check-ins. Unfortunately, I am not able to log into Echolink tonight. I'm not sure why, but are there any Echolink check-ins? Please come now with your name, your call sign, and your location.
November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in Mesquite. John the Echolink. I'll also do it on the computer, but it's N50F, Clay in Mesquite.
Well, not hearing anything. You can check the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing stations. This is KF5JHA, back to our net control.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. I appreciate that. Next we have National Space Society events and activities. This is Bill in 5BB. Go right ahead, Bill.
Well, thank you, Virginia. This is N5BB, November 5 Bravo Bravo. I happen to be the Vice President and the Membership Director of the National Space Society North Texas Chapter. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets on the second Sunday afternoon of each month at 3:30 p.m. at Spring Creek Barbecue on Highway 183 in Irving. This is at the Beltline intersection across the highway from Irving Mall. The August meeting will be tomorrow, Sunday afternoon, August the 9th, and the topic will be the NASA Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, that's the LRO mission. And the virtual speaker will be NASA Goddard Space Flight Center scientist, Dr. Caitlin Ahrens, A-H-R-E-N-S. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. You do not need to be a member of any organization to attend. 10 people came to the July event. The big National Space Society event each year is the International Space Development Conference. It's abbreviated ISDC. ISDC 2026 occurred in early June in Virginia, near Washington, D.C. I and several other people from our local chapter were there. Next year, ISDC 2027 will be held in Los Angeles, California, near the LAX airport, from May the 27th through the 30th. If you have any questions about any of these events or the National Space Society, please contact Bill, November 5 Bravo Bravo, at my QRZ listed email address or at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE at BYROM.net. That's all I've got. Back to you, Virginia. This is N5BB.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. Appreciate the NSF announcements this week. All right, well, since I'm net control, it's up to me to bring our discussion topic of the evening. And I thought I would check in with one of my favorite planets, Jupiter, and bring you news from beneath the surface of Jupiter's two favorite moons. I say that tongue-in-cheek because I like these two moons. They are featured in 2010. It's one of my favorite movies. So I just say they're the favorites. So we're going to be talking about Europa and IO. And Europa is definitely a hot topic of discussion among the moons of the solar system, and IO is definitely a hot topic because it's very volcanic. So let's start with Europa. I've got like 3 hopefully fairly short articles The first one is, scientists thought Jupiter's moon Europa was ejecting water. Now they're not so sure. This article was written by Robert Lee and was published May 22nd, 2026 by space.com. Alright, let's get going. Astronomers have studied 14 years of Hubble Space Telescope observations of Jupiter's icy moon Europa and now suspect that its infamous water vapor eruptions may not exist as was previously thought. Europa has long been a hot target for scientists aiming to investigate the habitability of nearby worlds and the possible existence of life elsewhere in the solar system. That is because this Jovian moon is thought to host a global subsurface ocean that possibly harbors some of the essential elements for life under its thick and icy shell, including complex organic chemicals and water. The faint and difficult-to-detect plumes were previously thought to originate from the vast global saltwater ocean lurking beneath the icy shell of Europa. This material is thought to erupt from cracks in the icy shell of the moon. Now, previous evidence of the existence of these plumes has been called into question by the very scientists who initially proposed them. The evidence for water vapor plumes on Europa isn't as strong as we first understood it. Team member Kurt Rutherford of Southwest Research Institute said in a statement. Rutherford has part of a team that in 2014 suggested the existence of these European water plumes, but he and his colleagues now reconsider his conclusion. To reconsider the existence of Europa's water plume eruptions, Rutherford and colleagues looked at 14 years of data regarding Europa collected by Hubble using its HST SPIS instrument. This is the Hubble Space Telescope Imaging Spectrograph. In particular, they honed in on specific wavelengths of ultraviolet light called Lyman alpha emission, which is emitted and scattered by hydrogen atoms. Rutherford and team have been detecting Lyman alpha emissions from Europa between 2012 and 2014, but this investigation was pushing Hubble to its very limits. One of the difficulties in interpreting the data back then was determining whether to place Europa within its context, Rutherford explained. The way Hubble works left some uncertainty in terms of placement relative to the center of the image. If Europa's placement was off, even just by a pixel or two, it could affect how the data gets interpreted. The team feared that the detection of water vapor plumes from Europa may have been the result of noise in their data. Our reanalysis took our original 99.9% confidence in the plume's existence and reduced it to less than 90% confidence, team leader Lawrence Ross of the KTH Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden said. That's simply not enough evidence to support the certainty of claims we made at the time. The team still can't confidently rule out the existence of Europa's water vapor, especially as similar plumes have been more confidently detected on Saturn's icy moon Enceladus, and sulfur dioxide eruptions have been detected from Europa's fellow Jovian moon Io, the most volcanic body in the entire solar system. The question of the existence of these water plumes in the salty global ocean of Europa may finally be settled in 2030 when NASA's Clipper mission arrives in the Jovian system. The team's research was published on May 5th in the journal Astronomy and Astrophysics. And next we have Jupiter's moon Europa may have signs of life in its buried ocean, but can we get to them? This is an article published on August 3rd, 2026 by Shamina Kusuner, and this is also published in space.com. Let's see. Jupiter's icy moon Europa may have a previously unrecognized way of delivering life-supporting chemicals to its vast subsurface ocean, according to new research. Europa, one of the dozens of moons orbiting Jupiter, has long intrigued scientists as one of the most promising places in the solar system to search for extraterrestrial life. thanks to a hidden global ocean beneath its fractured, frozen surface that may contain twice as much salty water as all of Earth's oceans combined. Unlike Earth, however, Europa's ocean is deprived of oxygen and sealed off from sunlight, ruling out photosynthesis and requiring any potential life to rely on chemical energy instead. A key unanswered question has been how ingredients for that energy, such as life-supporting oxidants created on the moon's surface by intense radiation from Jupiter, could be transported through Europa's thick ice shell to the ocean below. Now, a new study by researchers at Washington State University suggests the answer may lie in a slow but persistent geological process that causes portions of Europa's surface ice to sink, carrying those chemicals downward. This is a novel idea in planetary science, inspired by a well-understood idea in earth science. Study led by author Austin Green, now a postdoctoral researcher at Virginia Tech, said in a statement, "Most excitingly, this new idea addresses one of the long-standing habitability problems on Europa and is a good sign of the prospect of extraterrestrial life in its ocean." Scientists know from images taken during spacecraft flybys that Europa's surface is highly geologically active due to Jupiter's powerful gravitational pull. However, most of this motion appears to occur horizontally rather than vertically, according to the new study, which limits opportunities for surface materials to migrate downward, except during extreme events such as the formation of large fractures. Additionally, the Jovian moon's near-surface ice is thought to behave as a rigid, stagnant lid, further restricting the delivery of oxidants to the subsurface ocean, the study notes. Using computer models, the researchers found the pockets of salt-rich ice near Europa's surface can become both denser and mechanically weaker than surrounding purer ice. Under the right conditions, these denser patches can detach and slowly sink or drip through the ice shelf, eventually reaching the ocean below in as little as 30,000 years, according to the study. The process, known as lithospheric foundering, resembles a geological process on Earth in which portions of the planet's outermost layer sink into the mantle. In 2025, researchers identified this process unfolding beneath the Sierra Nevada mountain range. To test whether a similar mechanism could operate on Europa, Green and his team modeled an ice shell roughly 18.6 miles or 30 kilometers thick under a range of ice shell conditions. In all 6 scenarios, the team examined surface material within the top 300 meters descends toward the base of the shell, the new study reports. In some simulations, the sinking began after 1 to 3 million years and reached the base of the shell after 5 to 10 million years. In ice shells that were more heavily damaged or weakened, sinking began after as little as 30,000 years, the study reports. This occurred for almost any salt content, the researchers say, provided the surface ice experienced at least some degree of weakening. According to the study, the mechanism may be an expedient method of transporting surface materials to the underlying European ocean. The moon will be studied in greater detail in the coming years by NASA's Europa Clipper mission launched in 2024. The spacecraft is scheduled to arrive in the Jovian system in April 2030 and conduct nearly 50 close flybys of Europa over 4 years, allowing scientists to assess the depth of its subsurface ocean and further evaluate the moon's potential habitability. The team's research is described in a paper published on Tuesday, January 20th in the Planetary Science Journal. And this is Virginia in B5S, your Skynet and Control, and we're I've got the discussion topic of the evening underway. We're talking about below the surface of Jupiter's 2 favorite moons. That was stuff about Europa, which, if you like science fiction, the book 2010, 2061, and 3001 by Arthur C. Clarke have lots of cool stuff about Europa. This conjecture and theory about its oceans possibly being habitable that's actually a fairly that's a long-standing topic. Those books are nearly 40 years old, and this topic has remained interesting and topical, and it's especially so because Europa Clipper is headed out that way to look at just this specific thing. So next we're going to go next door to Jupiter's moon Io, very volcanic moon, and this is our final article. What lurks beneath the nose of Jupiter's moon Io? NASA's Juno probe just took a peek. This article is from July 24th, 2026, and it was written by Samantha Mathewson, also published on space.com. Scientists have measured temperatures beneath the surface of Jupiter's volcanic moon Io, offering the first ever glimpse of the hidden heat driving the most volcanically active world in the solar system. During close flybys of Io in late 2023 and early 2024, NASA's Juno spacecraft turned its microwave radiometer (MWR) instrument towards the moon, probing roughly 6 to 20 feet, or 2 to 6 meters, beneath its surface. Originally designed to peer through Jupiter's thick clouds, the instrument instead revealed a powerful new way to study how heat moves through planetary crust, according to a statement from the Space Agency. The surprising discovery that we could see below our rocky moon's surface has important implications for studying Earth's volcanoes, Scott Bolton, co-author of the study and Juno's principal investigator, said in the statement. Juno has taught us that if we look with an MWR-type instrument near a volcano on Earth, we might see a similar signature in the subsurface temperature gradient, providing new information on how terrestrial volcanoes work. Until now, researchers had relied almost entirely on infrared observations, which detect only the temperature of Io's surface. By probing several feet underground, Juno has revealed how heat moves through the moon's crust for the first time. The measurements show temperatures rising by more than 40 degrees Fahrenheit, just a few feet below the surface, far more than sunlight alone could explain. Juno's subsurface heat map also revealed localized regions of elevated heat with temperatures measuring between 18 and 36 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 to 20 degrees Celsius warmer than the surrounding terrain, according to the statement. Juno's observations uncovered another surprise, too. Despite being known for its towering mountains and active volcanoes, much of Io's surface appears remarkably smooth and composed of unusually low-density materials. Researchers think the moon is blanketed by porous layers of volcanic ash, sulfur frost, and other eruptive debris that continually resurface Io, burying older terrain beneath fresh deposits. Scientists think the heat detected beneath Io's surface could be rising steadily from the moon's molten interior through a conductive crust, or coming from pockets of cooling lava flows trapped just below the surface. Either way, the data provides the clearest picture yet of how Io transports heat from its interior. Unlike Earth, where volcanism is driven largely by heat from radioactive decay, Io is continuously stretched and squeezed by Jupiter's immense gravity as it orbits the giant planet. This constant tidal flexing generates enormous amounts of internal heat, fueling hundreds of active volcanoes and making Io the most volcanically active object in the solar system. By improving scientists' understanding of how heat and magma move beneath the planet's surface before eruptions, the same microwave techniques used by Juno to help researchers better monitor Earth's volcanoes and improve eruption forecasting. Io provides a unique window into learning how tidal heating works throughout the cosmos, a fundamental process that provides energy and heat to worlds that are far from their parent star, Bolton said in his statement. This process can not only create the most volcanic body in the solar system, in the case of Io, but also fuels the subsurface oceans on the moons of giant planets such as Europa and Ganymede. Up until this point, we can only observe the heat escaping at the surface through eruptions. Now we can characterize how the heat is moving from the interior toward the surface. Because Io is an extreme example of volcanic activity, it serves as a natural laboratory for studying how heat moves through planetary crust. Those insights could help scientists better understand ancient volcanism on Mars, Venus, and Earth's moons, whose landscapes were shaped by massive eruptions billions of years ago. The technique could also aid the research for life elsewhere. While Io itself is far too hostile to support life, microwave instruments can also probe beneath icy surfaces. Juno has already used the same instruments to study Jupiter's moon Europa and Ganymede, where scientists believe vast oceans lie hidden beneath thick shells of ice. Understanding how heat moves through those crusts is key to determining whether they can harbor environments suitable for life as we know it. Their findings were published on July 22nd in the Journal of Geophysical Research, Planet. And if you're interested in Io, the previous books that I mentioned, especially the book 2010 Odyssey 2, has a lot of cool stuff about Io. Its connection to Jupiter. There's kind of an electrical flux tube between Jupiter and Io that's really interesting, and the endlessly falling and erupting sulfur dust is also a key component of the story in 2010. So that's how I got interested in these moons, was from my love of those books. Okay, this is Virginia in D5F Net Control, and that ends my presentation for Skynet this evening. Are there any comments or questions regarding the topic this evening? If you have a comment or a question for the presentation, please come now with your call sign. Okay, and do we have any more check-ins for Skynet before I continue? Come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. Kind of a chunk on the repeater, nothing else. If you were trying to check in, please try again. Okay, nothing heard. Next we have What's Up with Chaz. What's been going on in the sky? Chaz, you are welcome to begin your segment. If you would like to report to me any new folks over on Echolink that I can check in, please do so before you start your segment in D5F.
Thank you, Virginia. It looks like Echolink reset itself a little while ago, but we do have Jeff, KI5SDS, and also Billy, one of our net controls, KF5PDS. They're on Echolink. All right, so Slide Master, slide number 2. I'm talking about slides. We have a video version of Skynet that's over on, well, the video version can be captured by going to W5FC.org and clicking on the link to get to YouTube, and YouTube will have the video version of Skynet. So, okay, this is slide number 2. We call this segment of Skynet What Is Up because it's all about what's gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Slide Master, slide number 3. I've talked about the predicted nova of T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. I'm laughing because it is currently at a brightness around 10th magnitude, which is much too faint to be seen with just your two eyes. T Corona Borealis was supposed to go nova about 2 years ago. One recent prediction was for it to go nova around June the 25th. Let me check my calendar. Yeah, that has not happened. But when it does go nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is second magnitude. Now, I can see the North Star with just my two eyes from my very light polluted location here in Mesquite, Texas. Slide Master, slide number 4. This image of the sun was taken on August the 6th. I grabbed this image from spaceweather.com. I believe it came from the Satellite Space Dynamic Solar Dynamic Observatory, SDO. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you can use just your solar eclipse glasses to see them. The sun has just passed its 11-year solar maximum around October the 24th, October of 2024. I presented information about the solar cycle about 6 months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5. Now, third quarter moon was on August the 5th, so the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. On August the 10th, the moon is at perigee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 363,284 kilometers. New moon is on August the 12th. That's going to be important for a meteor shower we'll talk about in a few minutes. The first quarter moon is on August the 19th. On August the 22nd, the moon is at apogee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 404,642 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 6. On August the 9th, there's a conjunction of the moon, the planet Mars, the asteroid Ceres, and the M1. That's also known as the Crab Nebula in the eastern morning sky. Crowded morning sky. Slide Master, slide number 7. On August the 10th, just the next morning, there's a conjunction of the moon and the star Pollux in the northeastern morning sky. Slide Master, slide number 8. On August the 11th, there's a conjunction of the moon and Mercury in the twilight. It's going to be bright twilight in the northeastern morning sky. You probably need a pair of binoculars to pull out the moon and Mercury in the sky. Slide Master, slide number 9. Now, on the night of August the 11th and 12th, there's the peak of the Perseid meteor shower. It's a famous meteor shower, most popular for a lot of people. It can produce over 100 meteors per hour. Usually the best time to observe meteors is the hour before dawn, because this is the side of the Earth that is running into the debris that's left behind by comets and meteors. If you want to get more information about meteors and meteor showers, you can go visit the International Meteor Organization at imo.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 10. On August the 15th, there's a conjunction of Mercury and Jupiter in the northeastern morning sky. Should be interesting to try to find. Slide Master, slide number 11. On August the 15th, that's later on that day, there's a conjunction of the moon and the planet Venus in the southwestern evening sky. Venus is that bright object over in the west. Well, other than the moon. Slide Master, slide number 12. On August the 16th, there's a conjunction of the moon and the bright star Spica, that's in the constellation of Virgo, in the southwestern evening sky. Slide Master, slide number 13. On August the 20th, there's a conjunction of the moon and Antares in the southwestern evening sky. Antares is in the constellation of Scorpius. We talked about Scorpius recently on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 14. On August the 25th, there's a conjunction of the Moon and the planet Pluto in the southeastern evening sky. Now, Pluto cannot be seen with your two eyes. Can't see it with binoculars. You'll need a moderate-sized telescope. And the best way to see it is look in the field of view, have a good star map, plot out all the little dots you see, all the little stars and the objects that you see in the field of view. Go back a couple of nights later and see which ones moved. That's probably Pluto. Slide Master, slide number 15. Okay, there's something coming up on August the 27th, 28th. The partial lunar eclipse. The last total lunar eclipse visible in Dallas was on March the 3rd of this year. The next total lunar eclipse visible from Dallas is going to be June 26th, 2029, so it's going to be a while away from now. The next partial lunar eclipse will be on January the 12th of 2028. That's still quite a ways away. So August the 27th, 28th is the eclipse. It's a partial lunar eclipse. But I'll tell you some details in just a moment. The moon will enter the lighter part of the Earth's shadow called the penumbra at 8:24 p.m. Central Daylight Time. It's difficult to notice any changes then. The moon just fades very slightly in brightness. The moon enters the darker part of the Earth's shadow, called the umbra, at 9:34 p.m. Central Daylight Time. The eclipse becomes visible to the naked eye. Also, binoculars are a great thing to look at for the moon and the lunar eclipse. The middle of the eclipse is going to be at 11:12 p.m. Central Daylight Time. The maximum of the eclipse is going to be at that time with 93% of the moon into the umbra shadow. So it's very close to being a total lunar eclipse, but not quite. The moon leaves the umbra, the dark part of the Earth's shadow, at 12:52 a.m. The moon leaves the penumbra at 2:01 p.m. Central Daylight Time, and that's the end of the eclipse. North Texas will see all of that eclipse if the weather is clear. And this is KF5 JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 16. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question or need a fill-in in any information? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. My degree's in astrophysics, I might be able to answer your question. Or maybe someone else here on the net might be able to answer your question. Come out with your call sign if you need a fill or have a question. Okay, hearing nothing, slide number 17. So as the moon wanes right now, so do these words to this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ Chaz, and this is Skynet, which is transmitting on the W5FC repeater in Dallas, Texas, on 146.88 megahertz. Skynet is also available on Echolink, we've talked about that, and also on YouTube. Back to our net control. Virginia, it's all up to you.
Okay, thank you, Chaz, and thank you for the additional participants you gave me from Echolink. I copied Jeff, KI5SDS. Okay, all right, next we have Space Exploration and Space History with Gus, W5GUS. Over to you, Gus. This is NV5F.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. W5GUS here. We'll start with something that occurred a couple days ago, this past Wednesday. The upper stage of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket impacted the moon at approximately 5,400 miles an hour. That's about Mach 7, near the Einstein and Bell craters, which from the Earth view of that kind of the northwest part of the moon from our vantage point. Astronomers and planetary scientists utilize ground and space-based observatories to watch the sodium and lithium gas plume created by the impact, providing valuable data on lunar surface regolith dynamics and subsurface composition. All right, and the day before that, August the 4th, NASA and SpaceX officially unveiled custom Tesla Cybertrucks as the new crew transportation vehicles for commercial crewed missions to launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. The vehicles, designed to transport spacesuit-clad astronauts out to the pad, will make their operational debut for the upcoming Crew 13 mission. All right, and Chaz mentioned the upcoming Perseid meteor showers. They began their kind of a ramp-up phase towards the mid-August peak. Observers across the northern hemisphere reported initial meteor counts of 10 to 15 meteors per hour in dark skies. Working up to what Chad was saying was like 100, possibly 100 meteors or more per hour. And with optimal viewing conditions, like there'll be a new moon, so that's good. The Perseids will appear like they're coming out of the northeast of our sky. If you look up towards the northeast in the sky, and that's kind of where the Perseids meteors will appear. They're coming from. Okay, August 6th, teams from NASA and European Space Agency completed comprehensive mission operations reviews for upcoming Artemis crew flight tests. The sessions validated Earth orbit docking procedures and European astronaut integration protocols for upcoming orbital hardware trials. All right, we'll move on to quickly here on to space-related birthdays. August 2nd, Valery Bakovsky was born in 1934. She was a Soviet cosmonaut who set a solo spaceflight endurance record aboard Vostok 5 in 1963 that still remains unbroken. On August 2nd, 1949, Bertalan Farkas was born, the first Hungarian cosmonaut in space, spending over 7 days conducting experiments aboard the Salyut 6 space station. All right, the next day, August 3rd, 1964, Joan Higginbotham was born. Was a ham, KE5FYE, former NASA astronaut and electrical engineer who actively operated the robotic arm during ISS assembly mission STS-116. And speaking of being a ham, I understand that there's a new requirement for all American astronauts to have a ham radio license. I was told that. I haven't checked it out, but that's what I understand. So that's a good requirement. Okay, August 3rd, 1951, Hans Sledge was born. He was a ham, a German ham, DG1KIH. A German astronaut who flew on 2 space shuttle missions, performed key spacewalk, installing the Columbus Laboratory on the ISS. August 4th, 1955, Charles Sam Germain was born, veteran NASA astronaut who logged over 24 days in space across 3 space shuttle missions supporting Department of Defense and scientific payloads. Okay, August 4th, 1955, Andrew M. Allen was born, retired U.S. Marine Corps aviator and NASA astronaut who piloted 2 space shuttle flights and commanded the tethered satellite system reflight on STS-75. Okay, August 5th, 1930, a famous name here, Neil Armstrong was born. August 5th, he was on Gemini 8 and Apollo 11, iconic NASA astronaut, aeronautical engineer, and commander of Apollo 11, who became the first human to walk on the moon. And one day and about 20 years later, from Neil Armstrong's birthday, is Winston Scott. He was born in 1950, August 6th, a ham, KC-5RGF, was born. Former NASA astronaut and naval aviator who logged over 24 hours of spacewalks during 2 space shuttle missions. August 6, 1962, Gregory Cheminov was born, a ham, KD5PKZ. He was an astronaut and aeronautical engineer who served 6 months aboard the ISS as flight engineer and completed 2 spacewalks. August 7th, 1956, Kent Rumminger was born, a veteran of 5 space shuttle flights who commanded STS-96, the first human spaceflight mission to dock with the International Space Station. August 7th, 1962, Jose Hernandez was born, former NASA astronaut and engineer who served as mission specialist on STS-128, managing cargo transfer of over 18,000 pounds to the ISS. All right, and our last birthday for this week, Svetlana Saitskaya was born, August 8, 1948. Soviet cosmonaut who became the second woman in space and the first woman to perform a spacewalk outside Soyuz 7 in 1984. Okay, this week in space history, August 2nd, 2020, NASA astronaut Robert Bicken and Douglas Hurley splashed down safely in the Gulf of Mexico aboard SpaceX Crew Dragon Endeavour, completing the Demo-2 mission. This marked the first crewed water landing for American astronauts in 45 years since the Apollo-Soyuz test project in 1975. The successful 64-day mission restored American capability to launch astronauts from U.S. soil to the ISS and formally certified the Crew Dragon system for operational crew rotation missions. All right, August 3rd, 2004, NASA launched the Messenger vehicle, and Messenger, write this down now, ME for Mercurius Surface Space Environment Geochemistry and Ranging. That spells out Mercury. Spacecraft aboard the Delta II Heavy rocket from Cape Canaveral. Messenger embarked on a complex 6.5-year trajectory involving gravity assists from Earth, Venus, and Mercury before becoming the first spacecraft to enter orbit around Mercury in March 2011. That's about 7 years later. During its orbital mission, Messenger mapped Mercury's surface in high resolution, discovered abundant volatile materials, and confirmed the existence of water ice in permanently shadowed polar craters. There's that darn water ice again. Well, Net Control, I'm having some technical difficulties here. I think I better pass it back to you, Virginia. Yeah, there's something here that just happened onto my computer. So I'll pass it back to you, Virginia. W5GUS.
Okay, thank you, Gus. Appreciate it, and no problem. You have plenty of materials. Okay, next we have Chaz again for Constellation of the Week. So, Chaz, take it away, NV5F.
Thanks, Virginia. I just want to confirm that we have KF5PDS Billy. She's also on Echolink. Did you get that earlier?
Oh, I did, but she's also checked in on the electronic version, so I already have her checked in.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to let you know since I'm sitting here monitoring Echolink as well. All right, Slide Master, slide number 18. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key, Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012. Yep, we started Skynet in 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Ms. Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Draco the Dragon. Obviously, from what I just said, Draco is the constellation of the dragon. There's at least 3 different dragons in ancient mythology that Draco could represent. The possible explanation or best known of the dragon is Ladon, who was guarded the golden apples of Euripides. Ladon, the dragon, was slain by Hercules so he could obtain the golden apples. That was one of his 12 labors. We talked about Hercules a couple weeks ago. Unlike Orion with his nemesis Scorpius, there's an opposite sides of the sky. Draco and Hercules are adjacent, in other words, next to each other, constellations in the sky. Slide Master, slide number 19, the jokes of the week. And I think Gus, he usually does an introduction to my jokes, and looks forward to them, so here we go. Now, if you're over on Echolink, you can sit there and boo and hiss and let me know what you think of it. If you're on YouTube version of Skynet, you can do the same thing in the chat section. If you're on radio, just don't throw things at your radio and don't throw your radio out the window. Just laugh or cry or whatever. Here we go. What did the tired dragon make for dinner? Layman yawn. Layman yawn? Oh, yeah, I got it. Why don't you want to listen to a dragon story? Because they tend to drag on. Why does dragons sleep all day? So they can fight nights. I am thinking about opening a Dungeons and Dragons themed vacation rental. I'm going to call it an Airbnb. We'll go with that with money. Why did the dragon cross the road? When it eat some chicken. And the last one, here we go. What's the difference between Hanukkah and dragons? Hanukkah and dragons? One is 8 nights, while the other one 8 nights. Oh, I got it. Okay. Slide master, slide number 20. The star Thuban, is also known as Alpha Draconis, is not the brightest star in Draco at magnitude 3.64. The name Thuban is derived from the Arabic words from the whole constellation. There has been some speculation as to why Bayer had given Thuban the Alpha designation, even though Edaman shines at 1.4 magnitude. According to Burnham's Celestial Handbook, different astronomers in the past, from ancient times to the 19th century, assigned Thuban different magnitudes, and they suspected Thuban of being a variable star, though it shows no sign of being variable today. Johanna-Barrow himself, in his charts in 1603, gave Thuban a larger symbol than Edaman, thereby giving Thuban its Alpha designation. Thuban is best known for being the former pole star about 4,800 years ago. During the Old Kingdom period of ancient Egypt, it was the nearest true pole, about 2830 BC, being less than 10 arc minutes from the North Celestial Pole. So Polaris has not always been the North Star, but Thuban used to be. Edaman, or Gamma Draconis, is the brightest star in Draco at a magnitude of about 2.24. The name Edaman is derived from the Arabic words for dragon's head. The star Edaman appears yellow-white in the telescope. It's very easily naked-eye star to see from dark sky sight. In fact, the astronomy students at Brookhaven is given this star as one of the stars they need to identify as its magnitude. Slide master, slide number 21. The object, Messier object number 102, or also known as NGC 5866. In July of 2016 issue of the Texas Astronomical Society newsletter called The Spectrum, David Hutchinson's article notes that a bit of controversy regarding M102. M102 was really a duplication of M101 in Ursa Major, and not NGC 5866 in Draco. The Astronomical League's Messier list has M102 as NGC 5866. Stephen James Amir simply lists M102 as a duplicate observation of M101. Burnham's Celestial Handbook has its photograph of NGC 5866, but doesn't even mention M102 in its section on Draco. As its object itself, NGC 5866 is a nice edge-on lenticular galaxy known as the spindle galaxy. It appears somewhat of an elongated fuzzy streak that is wider and brighter at its center. Slide master, slide number 22. NGC, which stands for New General Catalog 6543, is the Cat's Eye Nebula. The Cat's Eye was the first planetary nebula to be examined spectroscopically by English astronomer William Higgins on August the 29th, 1864, which revealed the planetary nebula to be composed of luminous gas and were not unresolved clusters of stars as many thought them to be back then. In a telescope, the cat's eye appears as a greenish-gray, slightly oval planetary nebula. With averted vision, you can see the faint outer glows appearing. A large telescope would be needed to be used to see the central star of the nebula. Slide Master, slide number 23. NGC 5907 is an edge-on galaxy known as the splinter galaxy or the needle galaxy. In a modern telescope, it looks like a fuzzy, faint streak, similar to M102, but unlike M102, it's more uniform across its length. It remains about the same width almost from end to end, getting only slightly thinner at its tips. Splinter or the needle are good names for this galaxy. Slide Master, slide number 24. Now, here's a new interesting catalog number. UGC 10214 is the Tadpole Galaxy. This galaxy's unusual extended filament earned its place in the Alton ARP list of peculiar galaxies. When you look at it, you'll instantly see why it's called the Tadpole Galaxy. ARP placed the galaxy into its class of unknown or having narrow filaments. For this galaxy in particular, his notes mention that disturbance inside the west arm filament may generate, therefore, there. The famous observer Barbara Wilson was also able to see the galaxy in her 20-inch F5 Newtonian at 230 power as a small oval, fairly faint, no extension seen. You probably saw it at the Texas Star Party. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 25. Now there's a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Draco the Dragon. I've given you just a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 177 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen from the Astronomical League in about a year. Slide Master, slide number 26. And that is Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Draco the Dragon. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and work on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal from them for every Skynet. I also use at times the website constellation-guide.com for information. The next week, we'll take a look at Sagittarius, the Centaur. And this is KF5JJ Chaz saying good night and 73. Back to Renet Control. Virginia, it's all back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Chaz, and it was good to see you at the club meeting earlier this week. All right, next we have space launches for the week and also satellite passages, both done by Tom, KE5ICX. If you want to get those both done, Tom, please go ahead now.
Thank you, Virginia. This is Tom, KE5ICX. Let me give you the highlights for launches this week. We have, well, over the next couple of weeks probably, August 27th, the Ariane 6 launch of the MTGI-2. This will be the Ariane 62 rocket with two booster variants with the Ariane 6 launcher. Will launch the second Meteosat third-generation imager satellite to a geostationary transfer orbit. The mission is a partnership with the European Space Agency and EUMETSAT. This will be the fourth Ariane 6 rocket launch of the year. Then we have August 30th, Falcon Heavy launch of the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. This will launch from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy. The Heavy rocket will launch NASA's Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, the agency's next great observatory. Roman carries on board two main instruments, the 300-megapixel infrared camera called the Wide Field Instrument and a coronagraph. It will carry out a minimum of 5-year mission capturing detailed images of the universe at a dramatically faster rate than the Hubble Space Telescope, even with the primary mirror that's not the same size as Hubble's. We also have, let's see here, coming up, to be determined, the Globalstar 2R Launch 1. This will be from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral in Florida. This is the first of two launches that constitute a replenishment of the LEO-4 fleet. Nearly 8.5 minutes after launch, the Falcon 9 first stage rocket, launching for the 12th time, will target a landing on a drone ship, the Shortfall of Gravitas, positioned in the Pacific Ocean. Then we have coming up sometime in the fourth quarter of 2026, the Vulcan Centaur will launch Dream Chaser 1. SLC-41 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida will launch on a space launch. Vulcan Centaur rocket will launch its second demonstration flight of the Sierra Dream Chaser cargo vehicle for the International Space Station. The Dream Chaser is a lifting body resupply spacecraft that will launch on top of a rocket and land on a runway. This will be Dream Chaser's first flight to space. And then finally, we have to be determined the launch of Atlas V with the Boeing Starliner 1. This will be from SLC-41 at Cape. The United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket will launch Boeing CST-100 Starliner spacecraft to the International Space Station. Originally planned as a post-certification flight for a 4-person crew, this will instead be an uncrewed crew cargo flight to test changes in the vehicle made in the aftermath of the crew flight from 2024. Now, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Let me see, I got 2 minutes here. Best one for the International Space Station will be August 16th. That's at 5:39 a.m. out of the south-southwest to reach its highest point at 53 degrees at 5:41. It'll fall to the northeast at 5:44. The next best one will be the following night, August 16th, minus 3.3 magnitude at 5:39 a.m. out of the south-southwest again. This time it'll reach 53 degrees at 5:41. It'll fall to the northeast at 5:44. Now, the Tiangong Space Station has been renamed. We're going to call it Chinese Space Station, CSS, but it's Tianhe-1 is now the official name, as mentioned by China. It has one good pass this week, August 13th, minus 2.0 magnitude. This at 5:39 a.m. at 31 degrees. It'll reach its highest point at 63. And that's it for me this evening. So you can get all this information going to heavensabove.com. Plug in your longitude and latitude or your nearest city that you live near or in, and it'll bring up all of this information, including amateur satellites and a whole bunch of other good stuff. Back to you, Virginia. This is KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you, Tom, and that takes us to the very end. I already heard Hal introducing the Afterglow. Do we have any final check-ins for Skynet before I close the net? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
This is November 8th, Whiskey Romeo, NAWWR Romeo Grapevine. I'm talking. Thanks for that.
Okay, we added N8WWR Romy from Grapevine to the net, and that takes us to 24 hams participating in tonight's Skynet. We appreciate that. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow the topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is NV5F. My name is Virginia, and I will be closing this net at 10:31 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use for about 5 minutes until we begin the Afterglow movie 73. Everybody, and enjoy this evening discovering the universe. Have a good night. This is NV5F.
All right, it's time to wander back to the radio. Hopefully you have your microwave popcorn done. 4 minutes, not 5, 4 minutes will give you the optimal popping production possible, the PPP as they call it. 5 minutes is too long, it'll burn the popcorn. Okay, tonight's movie is called Flight to the Future. It came out in 1956, I believe it was. Yes, March 25th, 1956. I'll tell you a little bit about the movie in a minute. It says, under the working title, Flight to the Future, principal photography took place in July 19th to early August of 1955, just a few weeks, at the Everson Movie Ranch in Chatsworth, California. Edward Burns was the prolific director with experience in both television and cinema and worked with many different genres. In '56, he helmed the comedy Navy Wife and the crime thriller Calling Homicide. Directing World Without End, Burns crammed in order to make a science fiction film. He studied Albert Einstein's theory of relativity to give his space and time travelers a plausible way to go to the future. World Without End was partly made in order to reuse footage and costumes from an earlier Allied artist science fiction film, Flight to Mars, from 1951. A number of people who worked on the film went on to have notable careers, including Sam Peckinpah, who was the dialogue director on this, Walter Mirisch, an executive at Allied Artists, and Alberto Vargas. He did set sketches, was a famed artist whose only screen credit was this film, World Without End. Said the film was sufficiently successful and drew attention from the estate of H.G. Wells. The similarities to The Time Machine from 1895 led to a threatened lawsuit. The plot of World Without End was later repeated in other films, The Mole People, which we've watched from 1956, The Time Travelers, which we've also watched from 1964, and Planet of the Apes, which we've also watched from 1968. Rod Taylor would star in George Palace, The Time Machine, in 1960, which we've also seen, an adaptation of the H.G. Wells novel. As a B-movie, World Without End received few critical reviews, although one reviewer commented that the appearance of shirtless Rod Taylor contains most the best bit of beefcake in the entire genre. In a later 1986 interview in Starlog magazine, Taylor recalled, "I was so thrilled to have a sizable role in an American movie. It gave me the confidence to know that I could work with established Hollywood professionals and come out maybe equally as well." The director was taken with enthusiasm of his fifth credited actor, who literally threw himself into the role, struggling with the stuffed mutant spider. What a scene. Boy. The list of American films from 1956, if you want to see everything else that was part of this. At any rate, I'll read just a little bit about the plot. It says March 57, Commander Edmund Galbraith, Engineer Henry Jaffe, Radio Man Herbert Ellis, and scientist John Borden are returning to Earth from the first spaceflight, a reconnaissance trip around Mars. Suddenly their spaceship is somehow accelerated to incredible velocities, and they are knocked unconscious. Their ship crash lands on a snow-covered mountain. Where they venture out, they discover they become victims of time dilation and are now in the future. They theorize that seeing time-worn gravestones, and after their ship's instruments register heightened residual radiation, that a devastating atomic that day. They later learn that the year is 2508. Jaffe is particularly hard hit as he realizes his wife and children have long since died. They get ambushed by mutant spiders, attacked by one or two remnants of human society. Mutants are violent, primitive surface dwellers and mutated due to generations of exposure to heightened radioactivity. Have we heard this before? Yes, we have. Seeking shelter from attacking mutants in a cave, the four men discover an entrance to an underground city where they fled to the atomic war. These people live in high-tech, sophisticated culture. They're a peaceful group called the Temek, led by Temek, the president of the ruling council. Underground, the men have grown less virile, and there is fewer and fewer children being born. We have Elaine, the woman who admires shirtless Herbert Ellis, commenting the astronauts are more muscular than our men. Deanna rescued from the surface as a child, falls in love with Ellis, yada, yada, yada. Then we have something, traction, hostile member, and jealousy. This sounds all familiar. In fact, there's an episode of Star Trek doing exactly that right now with Captain Kirk and one of the alien super beings. It's an old story, folks. It happens all the time, even this late at night. Anyway, they manufacture a bazooka, another rip-off from another Star Trek episode. Well, actually, Star Trek ripped it off this episode, this movie. Including the deadly bazooka fire, the mutants take shelter in caves, and they're trying to kill them off, Offers they'll fight with the Chief Naga. I think the full name is Naga Hyde. In a single combat for leadership of the mutants, and Naga threatens to slaughter the unmutilated slaves. Borden slays Naga Hyde and orders the remaining deformed mutants to leave. The astronauts then establish a thriving settlement when they run out of money and film stock, including members of both groups, and they all lived happily ever after on planet Earth in the year 5608 or something. There you have it. I skipped over the boring parts, so you can thank me for that later. So here's the game and how we play it. If you're listening for the first time, what we do is we take check-ins. We ask your call sign name, did you see the film? Even if you didn't see the film, you're still allowed to check in because that's A-okay. You may have a suggestion of a film similar to it or a better film. Any film may be the answer to that question. We will talk about the plot on the first round. We will talk about the characterization and acting on the second round. And we'll talk about the technical aspects of the film, such as the special effects, lighting, sound, music, picture quality, all that jazz, or anything else we may have missed in the first two rounds. So let's begin. I'm going to take check-ins with your call sign, please. Your name, and did you see tonight's movie, Flight to the Future from 1957? Here we go.
I'll start it. NAWWR, November 8, Whiskey Romeo. Romeo and Grapevine. I did not see the film, Tom. I'm in and out. I just wanted to wave it in. NAWWR.
Well, I'm glad he broke the ice. This is November Tango 5. Tango Mike, Tony and Ellis. I saw about 20 minutes of it. There were graves and spiders.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, this is Virginia. I did see the movie, and my microwave starts burning the popcorn in about 2 minutes and 25 seconds.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, W5BLP, Bill in Garland. I saw the movie and I'm eating like these onion type chips from Buggy, so I didn't have the microwave.
This is in BB, Bill in Irving. I did not see the movie. I would like to see it, but I was just too busy this week. So I will probably listen to at least the first part of the net, but I doubt I will make any comments. Thank you. In 5BB.
Okay, there's pause in the action. Let me get these folks checked in. We got NAWWR, Romy over in Grapevine. No, he did not see the film. Shame on you, Romy, but thank you for checking in. We may ask you later on if you're hanging around what you think of our thoughts on the movie and would you watch it. That's always a good one. There's usually a pretty easy answer to that one, hell no. But sometimes people surprise us with, yes, they want to see the film. Next up is Tony, NT5TM. And Dallas. He sort of saw the film, 20 minutes up to the graveyard, and then he bailed. Next is NV5F Virginia. She was brave enough to say, yes, she saw the film. Good for you. W5BLT, Bill and Garland, talking about microwave. I'm going to assume that Bill saw the movie because I saw some conversation earlier today. So I'm going to put him down as a yes. Next up is N5BB, Mr. Bill over in Irving. No, he did not see the movie, and he doesn't even want to talk about the movie. Well, that's probably a good thing, Bill, because, well, it wasn't that bad. But it really wasn't all that good either. But it inspired rip-offs like crazy after that. Anyone else want to join us? Please come with your call sign name. Did you see tonight's movie, Flight World Without End, from 1957? Okay, well, maybe a small crowd tonight. I know there's some latecomers here too, so maybe at the bottom of the list we'll have a few more check in. Let's start with Tony. Tony, you get to be number one on the runway yet again. So why did you bail at 20 minutes, my friend, from KE5 ICX?
Well, it wasn't really a conscious decision. Well, actually, it kind of was. Skynet was starting, and I wasn't really engaged in the movie, and Skynet was more interesting, and I just turned it off and never started it going again. It did not pull me in at all. I mean, it was comprehensible. I definitely understood it. We've had movies for 20 minutes, and I would have been like, what is this even about? They go in the cardboard box, and then incomprehensible things happen? Well, just stay out of the cardboard box. This was not that bad, but, yeah, it just failed to pull me in completely. So, I'll insult the effects and other things a little bit later, but all I can really see about the plot was unengaging, but easy to understand. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. I don't disagree with you on that. I've got my own comments. Let's see, Virginia, NV5F. You saw the whole film. You got past the graveyard scene. You sat to the bitter end. I fell asleep during most of the second half. I did go back and watch it this morning, and I almost fell asleep again. But at any rate, what did you think about the plot for our fine film?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, the plot of this is intelligible, understandable. I mean, back then, even when movies were not great, they tended to have plots that were comprehensible. In contrast, I watched a very well-known, very highly critically praised movie about space earlier today. I may talk about that later on the net, but it had a plot that you have to have a scientific dictionary and at least 3 viewings of the movie to understand. This movie was very straightforward, and I understood the plot. I saw some elements in it that, of course, I've seen other places, but later on. So I'm trying to think of this plot from the point of view of someone in the mid-50s who is interested in science fiction and space and goes to see a widescreen Technicolor CinemaScope extravaganza adventure type of thing. I don't know why it was referred to as a B movie. I don't think a movie shot for CinemaScope with Technicolor would be considered a B movie. I think it was intended to be quite a, big deal at the time. Whether or not it was a hit, that's a whole different story. But if I look at it from the point of view of someone who's never seen an actual space flight, or never seen men land on the moon, or or who's never seen an episode of Star Trek, or who's never seen Planet of the Apes, or who's never seen any number of other time-space continuum warping, traveling movies, including the movie I saw today, this afternoon, this could be kind of cool. It's, it's of its time. The roles of the men and the women in the movie are very typical of the time. It explored the idea of people becoming kind of, driven by survival and safety, and sort of devolving in some ways while evolving in others, thinking they're more cultured or more cerebral versus physical, and kind of the pitfalls of that possibility, the pitfalls of nuclear power, radiation fallout. That was a common thing of the day. So I think from that point of view, this probably could have been a pretty good and interesting movie. It ended the way a lot of these kind of movies end, where you have this problem and they kind of wheedle around and suddenly realize they have a problem, and then they suddenly come up with a solution and they try it and it works. The end, not a whole lot of wind down or anticlimax. That's kind of how this movie worked. The plot kind of wandered around for a while, I guess, to fill some time. But there was kind of a little bit of intrigue about weapons being planted in the quarters of the visiting people from the past who were there 500 years. They didn't really travel in time. It was just all due to relativity, and they kind of fudged on how that happened, because they probably, the people who wrote the movie probably knew enough about relativity to know that you could end up traveling a long distance in space and only end up aging, very little versus where you left and came back to, and they didn't quite know how to handle that, so they just did this kind of silly sort of time warpy thing. But so if I looked at that in that perspective, from that perspective, getting back to Earth and finding these mutated caveman kind of deformed people and these giant spiders and just primitive conditions, and then all the civilized people were living underground, and them trying to figure out how to repopulate, and there are so many Star Trek and even Star Trek The Next Generation episodes that have this. There was even an Enterprise episode where they went to some planet when they found some Earth colonists who had been affected by radiation and had devolved into these sort of almost like caveman kind of people. And this movie, it's not a great movie or well remembered, but the plot it had some interesting things in it. It had the idea of, men sort of, gradually sort of becoming, less physically oriented and more cerebral, but then for some reason all the women were still hotties, but they weren't having kids, I guess. They weren't very many kids. They didn't seem to think having kids was important. I don't know. There were episodes like that in Star Trek. There was one in Star Trek The Next Generation that had a plot like that, where they stole all the children from the Enterprise because, their planet had somehow been affected by adverse conditions, and they were genetically affected and they couldn't have children, but they were all very advanced technologically and mentally, but they wanted children. And so, yeah, there's a lot that this could be given credit for. This and probably some other movies from around the time. But the plot was straightforward. I followed it. I can't say that I cared a whole lot because it was so simplistic and maybe a little bit too stereotypical in places. But, I was interested enough to see how it ended, and they came up with an interesting solution, and, albeit a lot more forceful than the solution that we would maybe deem acceptable now, but hey, drastic things call for drastic measures. I paid attention. I wasn't completely bored to tears by it. It was okay. It was fair. I try to give it, a pass for the time frame in which it was, came out, and there's kind of movies that were back then, things could be very simple. And hey, Star Trek episodes were like that. They were like 50 minutes long, and they would take a really simple plot and stretch it out into 50 minutes. And I find some of those a little wandery too, but that's considered great science fiction. Back to net, NV5F.
Man, what am I going to talk about? You got all the points I wanted and more. Okay, good enough. Actually, very good. Next up is Bill, W5BLT. Welcome back, Bill. You saw the film, I think. What did you think from KE5ICX?
Well, thanks, Tom. And first of all, I also just apologize, guys. I've been really hit hard since May with a bronchial infection and what they thought was arthritis, and then thought I had shingles, and then decided something with the head, headache, and all that stuff. So, also lost my dad, K9UES, even though he let his license lapse, he became a silent key, and so I just, in a way, this is a great movie to come back to, because as you all know, I love these really bad science fiction movies from that era. And I can remember as a little kid, probably 3, 4, maybe 5 years old, just sitting with my dad and having popcorn or donuts or whatever we had, and watching these crazy films. This film was a very simplistic plot, yes. In fact, it was stolen from The Time Machine from H.G. Wells, and the state actually sued. And of course, 4 years later, I think it was 4 years later, The Time Machine came out. One of the things about this being shot in the somatic, I forget what they call it now, widescreen or whatever it was for that time. They were trying to beat out another movie company. And so they got this very simplistic plot, and it inspired a lot of other people that they stole it from H.G. Wells, and of course got sued. And anyway, there was an interesting video I sent out if you get to watch the 20 facts about it. I don't think there's 20 facts on there, but anyway, I love this movie. It was simplistic. You had, I think, Nago getting killed there at the end. And of course, it reminded me a lot of the Eloys and Morlocks, or not Morlocks, Eloys and whatever those other people, Morlocks. Get my group straight here. I'm also on some pain meds too, with the headache and that stuff. So if I sound incoherent, that's why. But anyway, it was just, for me, it was just a fun movie. It just kind of reminded me of when, as a family, we'd all just gather around the TV and talk and just have a good time together. And that was just something I needed. So, yeah, while the plot was simplistic, it inspired a lot of other simplistic plots. And I just think about what it would be like either watching this on TV in the 50s or going to the movie theater where it had a double billing with another film, and how much fun that would have been. I think we lose this now. Where we used to enjoy simplistic plots like this, I think, because we'd all just gather around and talk and laugh while, the funny scenes, like with the giant spiders. I can remember when my dad saw something like this, and he'd go, "Are you kidding me?" And he would just laugh, where my mom would describe it very seriously. My dad was throwing his 2 cents on the comments about, oh, yeah, crazy, special effects here, son. Where my mom would try to describe the movie to scare me, like, oh, there's a huge giant spider attacking this guy in the tunnel, attacking the radio man, And I can remember bits and pieces of this movie. So it was good for me. I know I rambled there a little bit, so forgive me for that. I think this is a great movie to come back to, and I missed you guys, so that made me kind of love this movie all the more, whether it deserves it or not. W5BLT, thank you, Tom.
All right, well, thank you, Bill, and welcome back. Sorry you had to go through all the things that you did and losing your dad. That's a hard thing. I know the feeling, and especially when you're talking about in context of things you used to do together, including watching these goofy movies. But we're glad you're back. Hope you get on the mend, and look forward to having you on all the future nets. Okay, we are, Bill said that he was a listen only in 5BB, so we're going to let him listen only for now. Anyone else want to join us this evening? Tonight's movie is World Without End from 1956. If you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie? Okie dokie. Well, I guess it's just going to be a small group tonight. That's okay. I was trying to figure out why, and Virginia brought this up, in the inconsistency, the fact that they called this a B movie, even though it's in Technicolor and CinemaScope, which is expensive processes, mainly the Technicolor part. CinemaScope was a technique used with existing 35 millimeter, although there was 70 millimeter, I think. It's actually Cinerama or Panavision, which is 60 millimeter. I don't know. I'm not a film major. She could probably tell us more about the different processes. But at any rate, the fact it was a color film as well, I mean, and it suggests that there was more money involved. Well, the studio itself, Allied Artists, was apparently a previous low-budget movie production company that went on, changed their names. I guess they got some cash infusion, and maybe they were trying to make a film that was above average or above B status, even though it was tagged with other films as a second feature. So I don't know. It sounds to me like it was pretty expensive for them to do no matter what, because a lot of times, while in later years, you could technically, make a decision whether you want to do black and white or color, particularly if you're an influential director, and some deliberately chose black and white because it was an easier process, and you could do so much more with the visuals with just using black and white film. You had more control over the lighting. Whereas with color film, it has to be brightly lit, which kind of takes away from the imagination and the sleight of hand that you could do. So in some ways, you were kind of hamstrung by using color, especially Technicolor, which with the bright colors. So it all depends. I don't know. At any rate, my comments about it are some of this goofy things include, why is it on all of these missions everybody takes an arsenal of weapons with them? This was just supposed to be, a little trip to Mars. I guess they didn't have any alien life or anything there, but they had a whole bunch of guns. Then when they go and land on Earth, they don't know it's Earth. They pull out the guns and then they start shooting, and these, 45s have absolutely unlimited ammo in them, and they just keep shooting, and they're terrible shots, too. They can't hit the side of a barn, and they go through all of this stuff. They know they're going to be there for a while because they've realized that they are on Earth at this point, and they're still shooting the guns off. I mean, they're gun happy in this thing. They must have had tons of ammunition. That was one thing. Let me see, what else was I going to say? Yes, these were all like plots that ended up in many space operas, Star Trek in particular. They all looked very, very familiar. We've seen these before. You can even name the episodes, multiple episodes, in fact. I mean, we had Arena, we had, what was the one with the troglodytes? Oh, Cloudminders, that was another. Time travel stuff, and the one that was just on, I can't think of the name of it, where they leave the galaxy. That one was just on. We're talking about the same basic plot. So several episodes of Star Trek stole these plot ideas from this particular movie or the ones that came after this. So no surprise. My biggest problem is that I found the characters lacking. They were somewhat dull. They fit some stereotypes fine, and I guess maybe they handled the roles okay in the alien guys. But I found them so boring and pedestrian. I really didn't care. They were kind of not really very exciting, which is probably one of the reasons I fell asleep. Is that they're talking me to death over some of the technical details, and then they're talking about stuff I don't care about because I don't care if they survive or not. I have no vested interest in mankind surviving because everybody's boring by then. I don't know. A lot of the look of the modern civilization was pretty much 1950s furniture with brightly colored walls and doors that opened by themselves. That was about it. Well, with some help from some stagehands that we didn't see. So, okay, fine and dandy, really wonderful. The dog, Dick and Jane me all the way through the thing about how everything's going to be done and the jealousy factor, and we've seen it all before. Maybe this one, they did this first, but it just felt very worn plot. Now, the interesting thing is I've never seen this film before. This is the first time I'd seen it. I had seen the one with the stuffed spider before, and we'd watched that film, whatever it was called. That one was, I think, on the moon or Mars or something. I think it was the moon. But in any case, it still looked pretty goofy. So it was okay. I'd watch it again for fun, but I'm afraid that the same thing will happen. I go into protective mode and I fall asleep if I find the film lacking, or the fact that it's 9 o'clock and I have to go to bed. Okay, with that, I guess we're going to move on up to the next bit, which is going to be the acting. Oh, this should be interesting. So we will start with Tony. He may have snuck a gander at the rest of the film or not. Tony, you got anything on characterization for us? NT5PM from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. No, I haven't watched any more of it. I feel undermotivated. You know, a couple things, yeah. I was really struck by the revolvers and the fist fighting. It's like, you know, I follow a lot of astronauts on the ISS on Twitter, and there's just no shooting people and no fist fights. It's really weird. I guess everyone thought that was going to be a much more important part of space exploration. I could not tell the characters apart, didn't know their names, didn't care. Just a bunch of guys wearing cheap canteens and belts they got from Big Tech's Army Navy, which used to be kind of where Beltline ran into 75 and Richardson. Anyway, that's what I thought of their costuming and their characters both. Didn't care about any of them in particular. Something I did wonder about, and maybe those of you who watched the 21st minute of the movie can help me. When they graveyard, the tombstones they saw, at first at least, all seemed to be people who died in the 40s. And I thought that was really pointless. If they wanted to make it clear that time had passed on Earth, I would be expecting to see, John Smith's beloved son died 2252. May he rest in peace. I don't know if they remembered to include something or not because I didn't see that part. But maybe they were at least smart enough to think of that. So, yeah, I guess that doesn't relate to any round in particular. But characters, boring, interchangeable, that's why I didn't finish. NT5TM.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. Well, yes, it did. You must have fallen asleep or turned the TV off or whatever. But yeah, they did mention it. There was one tombstone that said born 1980 and then died, I don't know what it was, 20-something. So that was the first indication that they were in the future. Well, first they were on Earth because of the tombstones, and then they were in the future with that. And then the 2188, so many people had died in 2188, I forget, whatever it was, the year 2188, and there were many tombstones with people dying in that year. They figured there was something bad that happened. So yeah, that's how they knew, and that's how they were able to get across and establish the fact that they were on Earth in the future. All right, next up is Virginia NB5F. Virginia, what'd you think of our fabulous characters here? And, of course, everyone's favorite, the stuffed oversized spider from KE5 ICX.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Tony. They kind of ran together. The most notable characters that stood out to me were the gal who was sort of the servant, because she was from the surface, and they were, you know, sort of two groups of people. There were the weird deformed mutates is what they called them, and then there were the people who were genetically normal, and they were like second-class citizens among the mutates, and so they would be adopted and cared for by the people who lived underground, the civilized people, and they would be treated kind of as second-class citizens. And her little plot in it was interesting to me. And then the fellow who liked her, he had kind of a funny accent. He sounded like he was maybe from the UK or something. And he had kind of a little bit of an antagonistic beginning with her. And actually, kind of dynamic and interesting, and I thought she was kind of an interesting character. That was probably kind of a different approach, for those days. It was probably kind of a plot twist. I kind of think about this movie as something I can imagine seeing when I was a kid, like when Bill saw it with his family, like seeing it when I was 7 or 8, and probably thinking it was a pretty, probably back then I would have probably thought it was an interesting movie. And I probably would have liked that character. And the other female characters, they all kind of ran together. They were all sort of, very tall and leggy, and all wore really short skirts and really low-cut dresses, and had big, beautiful, Farrah Fawcett-looking hair, and the guys were all sort of muscular and but they, it's funny. It's funny, like guys in movies back then who were supposed to be, well-toned and fit, weren't overly so like the actors are expected to be now. I've always thought that was interesting, seeing the guys in movies back then they were sort of normal fit. They weren't like Hollywood, they weren't like Hollywood beach bod fit. They were, sort of normal guy fit, like had been in the military or something. Always interesting to me to see that. But, yeah, the guys in this weren't terribly interesting, but I don't know, they kind of stood apart to me. There was the one older guy who was gray-haired, and he talked about how he was, like, over the age of 50, and he was intrigued by all the pretty women taking an interest in him because he wasn't from their time, and, and then there was the pajama bunch, the cerebral egghead, guys. They really looked like they were ripped off by Star Trek for so many Alien episodes with their funny outfits and their weird head things. Their headgear made me wonder if they were if they were, I've been reading with my 2001 podcast buddies. We're doing a book club podcast, side podcast on the book 3001, The Final Odyssey, and there's a part about in 3001 they issue you this thing called a brain cap where they like shave all your hair and you know, electrolyze all your follicles on your head, and you're just bald, and you just have this, you know, permanently implanted, you know, brain, straight to brain data, you know, thing where you can go into VR worlds and absorb data. And I wonder if that headgear was for that. But anyway, they were kind of hard to tell apart. But I didn't really think any of it was terrible. You know, it was the common acting of the time. It was all sort of crisp and you know, they spoke with dialogue that's easy to understand. I'm going to tell on the movie I was watching earlier today. I was watching Interstellar because I had only seen it once, and everybody compares Project Hail Mary to Interstellar, usually positively, but I had to admit I'd only seen it once, and I had found it kind of depressing, and so I had not ever felt compelled to see it again. So it's on Prime right now, so I was watching it again this afternoon, and it's still depressing. It's a cool movie. The effects are way cool. The story is very difficult to understand. You've got to listen to every single little bit of technical jargon, and still you can't understand quite what the motivation is for certain things. It's all very technical. But one of my main complaints is that for the first third of the movie, Matthew McConaughey just mumbles and uses this drawl that is so thick that you have to turn the volume up as high as you can stand it to understand anything he's saying. And that was like, dude, why can't he just speak up? So, you know, I can't fault any of these actors for not being understood. I understood everything they were saying. I could tell them apart. I didn't care about them a whole awful lot, but I liked that one little subplot. You know, I thought the acting was fine. It was a little cheesy in places. That was sort of the going thing back then. Acting could be a little more cheesy and melodramatic. That was just the way acting was. But yeah, the dialogue could have been better. I think the actors themselves were pretty decent actors. They were, you know, just acting in what they could get their hands on, and I think they did okay. And I didn't mind the characters. I didn't find them to be, you know, amazing or dynamic in most cases, but they served their stereotypes well. You had the, you know, kind of dishwatery pajama group that were like the, you know, the men of the future, and then I don't know why the ladies were all so gorgeous, but they were, and then you had the crazy cave dweller people that were like almost like the Planet of the Apes, and I don't know if the Planet of the Apes people saw this, or the guy who wrote those books saw this movie, but, you know, he might have been inspired by this and Time Machine. So anyway, they did okay. Back to net in V5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. And I'm going to venture out on a limb and say this out of turn, but I have a suspicion what happens is they do research for films, or when they pitch a movie, they say, this is just like for Planet of the Apes, let's say they go in and they say, we want to do Planet of the Apes, we're going to do the book, whose name I can't recall right now, but anyway, it's like the movie World Without End from 1957, you know, where they go back in time, or they go forward in time, and the future, and all this stuff happens, or the time machine, or one of these things, because they need to green light the thing quickly, and they got to have people who have the money and can write the checks and that, and they've got to make it happen. The other thing that can happen too is inspiration for the film. Well, it's already been done once. Let's go ahead and watch the film and see what we can glean out of it. They take notes, and then they either consciously or subconsciously go and they follow the same plots and improve upon it or do something with it. but they have a guide. They have a framework that they can use, and then they can go ahead and change it about. Now, the thing you got to be careful of is exactly what happened with Time Machine, at least the book, and that is that you can get sued for plagiarism. But if you make it different enough, or you think you can survive a lawsuit, or nobody is noticing because you're listed as a B movie or considered a B movie, I don't know what you would do in a situation like that. Although it may have been an A movie because they went and sued him to try and get some money out of him. So maybe it's correct. It was they tried to make some money off of it. At any rate, that's my comment, and I did that out of turn. Next up, I'm sorry, Bill, my fault, W5BLT. It's your turn. I'm shutting up now. Go right ahead. What do you think about the characterization?
Okay. Hey, thanks, Tom. One of the things that I'll add, and it was in this video, and I'm sorry about my audio here. I'll have to become quiet to myself when I hear myself. But anyway, I'll see if I can do some good on that. But a couple of things. That movie company, yeah, they got sued, but they think there was a settlement where they did agree to do the movie, The Time Machine, a few years later. Our characters here, the radio man, he was excited. I think he was the guy from Australia. He was excited to do this movie. And so he played his part really well, where the lead character, and I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, he just sort of showed up, did his lines, and was very dull. So one of the things that happened is the guy from the radio guy, he ended up being in the Birds. He ended up being the main character in our Time Machine movie. And so it goes to show you need to always show up to work, even if you think this is a movie. People are watching. Directors notice. The other thing, talking about the men and women, I have a theory, and keep in mind I'm blind, but you know, you always have the glamorous women, I guess, of the 50s, early 60s and things, but 40s as well. Keep in mind we had World War II, we had the Korean War then. Men longed to come home to their wives and girlfriends, and I think there's that, and that's why you see the women as all beautiful and stuff, because, you know, when you're in the throes of battle, you're worrying about your woman back home. One of the guys that I think was the artist on this movie, he had been the one who helped draw the pictures of the women on the bomber plane, and he needed money, and so he did this film. So for me, that was fascinating to learn that bit of trivia, and I wish I could remember these guys' names, and I'm sorry I should have written them down, but I'll just save my medicine. I'll give that as my excuse. What else was I going to say on this? Oh yeah, the character, my favorite character, of course, is the Spider, right? Spidey was nice. And he or she had made their appearance 3 years ago before that movie, and these guys just kind of ripped off the sets and things from other movies, and the director was very upset about that because you spend all this money on photography that you're doing the kind of stock footage or different things from prior movies. So anyway, I liked our Australian radio guy because I thought that was great trivia. Back to you, Tom. Sorry about that. W5BLT.
All right, thank you, Bill. Thanks for the comments. Let's see. I guess we're at the bottom of the list here. Bill for listen only. That's BB. Anyone else want to check in? Any latecomers, please come now with your call sign name. Did you see tonight's movie? Whether you saw it or not, it's immaterial. So you just want to join us. We're here for the discussion. Tonight's movie is World Without End from 1956 or 7. 1956, I think.
K9AHO. I haven't seen the movie, just checking in.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean Fort Worth. Yes, I did see the movie.
All right, I've got K9AHO, Brian, and I see you're over on Echolink, so I got your name off of there. Boy, you got a great signal this evening. It's like 599. It sounds great. You did not see the film, but thank you for checking in. We may ask you, if you've been listening, what you think about our comments. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK, over in Fort Worth. Yes, he saw the film. So, Sean, you get a couple of rounds combined. What did you think about the movie and the characterization from KE5, ICX?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I agree with what everybody's had to say about this. You know, it is hard to sometimes watch these older movies with fresh eyes, since we've seen so many science fiction movies. So it's easy to say, well, yeah, I've seen this 100 times, when this appears to be the original for some of these thoughts. So I agree with Virginia. You kind of got to try to watch it as if you were seeing it back when it was on the screen for the first time. So looking at it like that, I guess it was somewhat interesting. But for some reason, I had a hard time staying with it as well. Even though I did end up watching it all the way through, there was times I was very tempted to kick it up to 1.5 speed because it was just getting kind of boring. I thought it was kind of silly. The whole spider part wasn't really needed. I agree with you, Tom. The gunplay was ridiculous. I kept thinking, wow, them 6 bullets seemed to turn into 25 before they needed to reload. You know, once again, if they're just making an orbit around Mars, then why would they even need weapons? And 2, why were they carrying full camping gear? You know, there's in that little tiny rocket ship, they sure were carrying all that stuff they didn't need. So yeah, that stuff. But we've seen that a lot with these movies in that time frame where they always seem to have everything, including sometimes a boat with them. So yeah, kind of ridiculous, but you know, it was, yeah, I don't know, something about it was just kind of bland, I guess. I guess I can't combine 2 rounds. Yeah, the characters were a little bit bland as well. Not that it was bad acting or, you know, it's just, you know, even the funny part was when they were in this underground city when their leader asked, which one of you is the leader? I was actually wrong. I thought it was one of the others. I thought the scientist guy was just the scientist guy. I thought it was the guy in the darker jacket was in charge. So that shows you how much the characters kind of stuck out. So yeah, this one was just kind of bland. I don't know if I would have liked this or not had I seen it back in the 50s. But today, yeah, it just doesn't really stick out, unfortunately. But it wasn't bad. It was just, and yeah, I don't really have a lot to add to what everybody's covered. Does very well. So yeah, Spider once again gets Best Actor award. Anyway, back to that. KB9S. Okay.
I won't ask for additional check-ins at this point, but Well, I can. Anyone else want to join us? Please come down with your call sign. Okay. All of the characters were forgettable. Even the skull cap guys were okay, I guess. They were moderately interesting because they got skull caps, right? And I'm trying to figure out what the costume department. I guess the one guy, the leader, Naga. No, that was the. At any rate, the superhuman guys, the super intellects. He's wearing some viceroy necklace thing and looked like something from, I don't know, Robin Hood or something he had on. So all they had to do was add multicolor skull caps because this is a Technicolor movie, so you've got to have, everybody has a different color skull cap. So the one thing you can say for sure, at least as aliens, they dress stylistically. They aren't all mono-color, same thing. You know, all these societies, everybody dresses exactly the same. So at least they had that going for them. And then to save on costume material, they put the gals in all skimpy outfits just to, you know, low cut, high waistline and hemline and all that jazz. So I'm looking at a Technicolor CinemaScope freeze frame right here. Every color is there, folks. It's every color of the rainbow just sitting there, and then the set and all of that. And everybody's sitting around talking or listening. Just like a Star Trek episode. Virtually the same thing. Amazing. Oh, well. Any pop out anything? Not really. Everybody was kind of fit in their roles. There was no big breakout anything in this that was particularly exciting. Maybe that's why it was kind of, nobody really said much about it. It wasn't bad per se. The acting wasn't terrible. It was just sort of, okay. Everybody did their role. They didn't forget their lines. They reacted in a manner appropriate for an actor with no career, but they weren't amateurs either. It didn't sound like they were reading their lines or any of that. So, which we've seen in some of the minor productions or private, some of these, I wouldn't call them art house films, but low production, amateur productions. They definitely look like it, sound like it, and everybody acts like it. Very wooden performances. We didn't have that. We just didn't have any breakout performances either. It's very C. I give this one a C minus because I fell asleep. If they could have kept me awake through the whole thing, I'd give them a C. Maybe even a C plus, but nope, I fell asleep. Okay, that's my bit on that. So we've got plenty of time for the third round. This is anything and everything you want to talk about this movie, including the special effects, the technical aspects of the film. So let's go ahead and get started and do that. We will also, if you're still listening, I'm going to call on you. You may answer. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. See what you think. Is this a movie that you would watch, or do you have a recommendation, or nothing? You don't have to say a word. So I'm going to start with Romy, if he's still out there, N8WWR. Romy, are you still there? What do you think? Is this a film that you would want to see from KE5ICX? I figured he'd wander off into the future. Next up, Tony, NT5TM. Tony's already said he probably will never watch this movie again. But Tony, do you have a change of heart? Have we given you reason to watch this film? You can say that in one word.
I could say that in one word, but should I? Yes, I'll say yes. Virginia always makes movies sound more interesting to me than they are when I see them myself, because my first reaction is, cheap crap. But then Virginia's like, hey, but look at that, and look at that. And, okay. So maybe I will. I think I would have gotten more out of the movie, this is not a joke, if I actually had made some popcorn and buttered it. It would have gotten me into the right frame of mind. Instead, I've been reading science news items before TechNet and then TechNet, and then I tried squeezing a little bit of this in between TechNet and Skynet, and it just wasn't, it didn't stand up between, my friends who are very smart and actual, professional scientists publishing papers. This movie was not that interesting. But in the right environment, with suitable popcorn and lots of butter, and not too much salt, it probably might have been better. The one thing about the 20 minutes of the movie that I saw that didn't bother me, oddly enough, I really didn't mind their spaceship. Yes, it was very 1950s, but compared to so many old movies with giant rivets and bolts and huge sparking apparatus, it was kind of understated, like an oversized airplane cockpit. Nothing was excessively big or clunky or heavy. The number of switches and dials and things was kept to an appropriate number. So yeah, I thought the spaceship by the standards of its time was quite reasonable. I do have to go now, but I have appreciated the net. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony. Thanks for your contribution this evening, and look in your email inbox tomorrow with next week's film. Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, your parting comments, technical or otherwise, from KE5ICX.
Oh gosh, I don't know if I have a whole lot else to say here. The women all wore really high heels. I can't imagine that being something that would stick around for the future. In only the quarter of the way through the 21st century, people practically don't even get dressed to go out of the house anymore. So, especially if you're just surviving underground, I thought that was funny how they were all dressed to the nines and wore high heels and did their hair every day. I appreciate that Tony thinks I can make movies sound more interesting. Now, when I absolutely hate a movie, I'll not only make it sound bad, I'll just practically, I will openly and passionately campaign against it. But I try to give things a fair shake. Technically, this movie was okay. The interior of the spaceship I did find rather understated. We did notice last night that there was a Vibraplex key at the radio desk, which I thought was cool. And the outside of the ship just looked like a model rocket, so it was kind of funny how, the inside looked almost plausible and the outside, just looked sort of cheesy, and the perturbation of it going through the whatever it went through to cause the relativistic problems, wormhole or whatever it hit that made it somehow, take them 5 minutes to get there and 500 years went by. That was a little cheesy. The effects there were just kind of, fly by the seat of your pants, just a rocket, a model rocket that looked like cardboard or something just kind of getting tossed around and looked a little silly. The world where they crashed, I guess, was up in the mountains and it was very icy, but it didn't really look like Earth to me. It just looked like a bad set of an icy place. And then they went down past the snow line on the mountains and were suddenly in what I called the Star Trek, the generic Star Trek planet. And the battles with the mutates did remind me a lot of Captain Kirk fighting the Gorn. And I mean, if you think about it, Star Trek was made a little over a decade after this movie, and a lot of similar movies came out. You have to imagine that something like this, or this movie itself, might have been visually inspiring. The underground stuff, the sets, some of it looked very Star Trek-like, but, Star Trek came out after this, so I do kind of have to wonder if they might have gotten some of their visual cues from movies that came out in the mid-50s. It was the mid-60s when they did their thing, and they probably had a lower budget. The costuming, kind of Star Trek-like on the women and the men. So yeah, I do have to wonder. I was joking all last night when we were watching this about how much of this that Star Trek had ripped off, and Planet of the Apes and fill in the blank. A lot of times I'm joking when I say those things, but there are movies where I'm serious about it. But science fiction was so tropey and so stereotypical back then that Star Trek could end up ripping a movie like this off without anyone from Star Trek ever having seen it, because so many movies were just kind of alike. So, and the sensibilities were about the same about a decade later. You just had a lot of men and women getting together, and who's going to kiss, and who's going to fall in love, and how sexy can you make the women look, and how can you get a guy's shirt off of him so he'll look sexy as well. That was about all you could do back then. You could make sure he had a scene where he took his shirt off or something. So it's fun to watch from that perspective, and I liked the Technicolor. It looked nice. This copy of it looked like it had been, remastered or something. It was actually a nice looking copy. It was easy on the eyes as far as, being watchable. And I think it was better than B quality as far as just the production values and even the story for back then. I think it was just something that was maybe a little too much like other things, and so we don't really remember it. It didn't stand out. It's not a classic, but for the time, it's funny. I'll go back and watch movies or be reminded of movies from the mid-'80s, and go, golly, why did this movie, which I liked very much, or that was kind of a big deal at the time it came out, or very well known, and now it's practically obscure. Even movies that I really like have become kind of obscure, and other movies have made it big, but at the time, they were duking it out at the box office. So I don't know what makes a movie just kind of fall into obscurity, but yeah, this one was okay. I didn't find it painful to watch. It was just old and cheesy. Back to net in V5F.
And what is it about this group that just loves cheesy stuff, especially our movies? It's natural. Okay, next up is Bill, W5ELT. Bill, your final comments on this fine film. What do you think? You can talk technical, you can talk about anything you want about the film, or about us and what we thought of the film from KE5ICX.
Well, I always go back to my mom wouldn't describe the women in the films to me. And then maybe my dad knew enough also not to describe that. But I always think about that. The first descriptive movie I got in descriptive video, and it was so much different on some scenes than what my mom described, and it always makes me laugh when I think about that. Interestingly, I'm going to talk about scenery. The rocky scenes and things like that, with all the rocks around. There's a ranch near Los Angeles, and it's actually been used in a lot of films, especially low budget. And I wish I could remember the name of it, but however, if you watch westerns, Gene Autry and riding around and things like that, a lot of the old westerns, and if you watch those films, people recognize that ranch. That was one of the criticisms. People recognize the scenery in that. So that's kind of interesting for me as a blind guy just to pick up on that. But I was watching some of the information about this movie because I was just so excited to come back and participate with the Afterglow game. And so I was just enthralled and happy that we were doing this movie. So yeah, it was kind of cool. I had one other thing, but I can't think of it now, so I'll just leave it at that. But it was criticized for that ranch scenery and the fact that they didn't go out to some different location or try to film in an older city to make it look more like what the future could be. Back to you, Tom, W5FC.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for your comments this evening. Next up is Bill, N5BB. Bill, you still out there? If you are, what do you think? Is this a movie you would be willing to watch without adult supervision? From KE5ICX.
Oh, I'm still here. This is N5BB. Well, after Tom was kind of saying bad things about the movie, and Tom said he fell asleep during the movie. Now, that might just be because Tom's eating popcorn when he should be drinking more caffeine to keep him awake during the movie. Tom, caffeine helps, okay? But then we had other people. Virginia seemed to kind of like it, and, warning, this is a joke, Virginia found a bug in the movie. You get the joke? She found a vibroplex bug, which is their name for the mechanical keyer. But anyway, and then Tony looks like he got at least partially turned around due to Virginia's comments about production values in the movie, etc. So I haven't watched a single frame of the movie, but I think maybe I will when I can find some time. And I may have to time travel to find enough time to watch it, but I'll give it a try in 5BD.
Right, thank you, Bill. And yeah, she had a good eye on that. She saw the vibroplex, the little red paddles on there. They had the red ones. So yeah, I had to go back and look and see, and indeed it's there. It's sitting at the radio man's position. Okay, next up is Brian. Brian, if you're still there, K9AHO, what do you think? Is this a movie that you would be willing to watch? And if you got any suggestions, we'll take them too, from KE5ICX.
Hi guys. I checked in just prior to beginning listening, so I haven't heard very much about the movie, but it sounds like you all have favorable impressions of it, so it might be something I would want to see. Anyway, hope you all have a good evening. 73 K9AHO.
All right, thank you, Brian. And you know what? You've got Echolink tweaked really well. I thought you were over there over air originally. Very clean, clear audio. Kudos to you. So come on back next week. Next up, Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your final comments from KE5ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, special effects. Yeah, the inside of the eye gray there, by the inside of the rocket wasn't too offensive. It was relatively, seemed small, so that was good. At least we didn't have the obligatory bout with asteroids or meteorites, so that was good. The only part probably of the interior, when it made me laugh was just the chairs. And when they went to whatever crazy speeds they thought they went to, and it just threw them back in their seats, I had to laugh, and it just reminded me of ludicrous speed in Spaceballs. So I actually found that humorous, that scene. So yeah. The outside rocket models were pretty rough. Maybe that was okay for the time, but yeah. And then the effect that we never really got told what caused them to go to the crazy speed. We don't know if they were being attacked by people on Mars or what it is they ran into. They just had these weird-looking flames coming up underneath the ship, which was just kind of bizarre, but I guess they needed something. And then really, other than beyond the ship, the only special effect we had, I guess, was the crazy costumes and the metal door, which I also thought was fascinating when the guy scratched it with the rock and said, "This is a metal that that's not been developed in our time." How you do that by just scratching it, I don't know, but okay. So yeah, that was about it for special effects. Costume, I guess, was okay. Obviously, they wanted to show everybody off, and once again, Technicolor, they wanted to push it to the max, I guess. So I don't have any real negatives there for it. The music, to be honest, I really don't remember much about it. So I guess that's a good thing. Audio was good. Had no problem hearing everybody. And yes, too, I wondered if this had been remastered because the picture quality was quite good on this. So it looked like it had been gone through. So good to there. One thing I did kind of forget about the plot was, not that I was particularly surprised by the ending, but I kind of, as we watched it, I kind of predicted that most likely at the end they were going to get help to go back to the past, and they decided to stay and just help the people. So, that was nice. Anyway, very interesting movie. I would, probably give this a C minus, maybe 2.5 out of 5 stars. But it was okay. Would I watch it again? I don't know. But anyway, it was interesting as always. Looking forward to the next one. Back to net. KB9S, okay.
So I'm looking at some of the stuff on this film. There's a site called Drive-In Theaters, the Hannibal 8 WordPress site, I guess. And they have some of the collaterals that were used for the film, including some of the costuming with the girls. Yeah, they've got a pin-up girl thing going on here for World Without End by Vargas, who interprets the women of the future for the screen's science fiction sensation World Without End in CinemaScope. You can probably find that online if you want to look. They show a halfway decent shot of the spider. Yes, it looks like a stuffed spider. That's why they kept pulling it around and doing boa constrictor stuff with it to try and keep you from imagining that it's something other than a stuffed spider, but that's all you can think of is a stuffed toy, a plushie. He was cute, though, with the red eyes and everything. Come on. Who doesn't love red-eyed spiders that are oversized? Let's see, what else can I say about it? Sets were serviceable. Everything was in color. If you look at some of the scenes with the CinemaScope, it's obvious they're trying to balance everything out so that all 400 people show up and fill up the entire CinemaScope frame. I guess that was a requirement. If it's not people, then it's scenery with greenery or boulders or something. They definitely had to fill up the screen. That was important so that you could say, this isn't television, and it's in color, and it's widescreen. So I guess that had something going for it. There was, they talked about budgets and things and how they were going to, use different people. They couldn't afford certain actors. Hayden. I can't think of his first name right now. Was the guy that they had picked. He was kind of a leading man back then. Sterling Hayden. He was picked or wanted to, as the commander, but they couldn't get him because he was too expensive. So that would give you kind of an idea if you know Sterling Hayden's career. But at any rate, overall, not a bad film, not a really great film. Entertaining, yes. Would I watch it again? Yeah. The funny thing is, being a kid and watching all these things back in the 60s, I don't recall this film. I don't think I ever saw it, or if I did, I don't remember it. Most of the films that we've watched, nearly all of them, I've seen at one time or another. I just didn't remember them. This one I have no recollection of, so except for the spider, which we saw in another movie. So there you have it. 1954, and guess who produces it? Why, the people that produced this film, Allied Artists. It'll be Target Earth from 1954. I think this is one we've not seen. So this is an HD restoration that was done here, I guess, last year. I don't know how they do it. I imagine the restorations are done with either a film company that's putting them out on Blu-ray, or it's being done by people who are using AI. In any case, I looked at a few frames. It looks pretty good. It'll be watchable. It's also on YouTube. So I want to say thank you to everybody who checked in this evening, and then everyone who had contributions. It's always enjoyable. I enjoy this net quite a bit. It's a lot of fun. And I take 2 naps so I can stay awake till midnight, the only time I ever do. So good night, everyone. 7-3. We'll see you all again this same bat time next week. This is KE5ICX. Now clear.